We always hear about geniuses being these larger-than-life figures, right? But what if I told you that a big chunk of what makes these brilliant minds tick, well, we can cultivate it ourselves? Today, we're taking a deep dive into the hidden habits of genius. Let's unlock these secrets.
And that's what makes this material so fascinating.
Hmm.
It challenges this whole "you're born with it" idea about genius. Sure, genetics might play a part, but this deep dive, it points to habits, perspectives, ways of thinking, things we can actually learn from and use in our own lives.
Okay, so let's unpack this first gem. Childhood. The source looks at figures like Da Vinci, Mary Shelley, Picasso, all influenced by those early years. It really makes you wonder, right? Is there something about that youthful perspective that shapes how a genius sees the world?
What's really interesting isn't that geniuses stay childlike forever, but that they kind of hold on to that childlike curiosity, that perspective as they grow. Take Mary Shelley, writing Frankenstein at 19, or Picasso. He actually deliberately used childlike expression in his later work. It challenges this assumption that getting older automatically equals more sophistication when it comes to genius.
Makes me think of that Picasso quote, "It takes a long time to become young." Like he had to relearn seeing the world with fresh eyes. And speaking of curiosity, can you imagine having Da Vinci's to-do list? Mapping cities, dissecting crossbows. The man's curiosity was boundless.
Exactly, and that boundless curiosity, that's something we can cultivate. Staying open to new experiences, constantly asking why, never losing that drive to understand the world. Think about a time you were totally absorbed in learning something new, that feeling, that spark, that's the energy we're talking about.
It's like that feeling of flow, where you totally lose track of time because you're so engrossed in something. But here's where things get interesting. The source talks about deep focus, Einstein with his equations, chaos all around him, Tolstoy locking himself away to write, and then it throws a curveball. It talks about how geniuses break the rules too. Warhol with his soup cans, Martin Luther taking on the entire Catholic Church. How did these two things even work together?
Well, this is where we start to uncover what genius really is. That intense focus, that ability to completely immerse yourself, it lets you understand things so deeply that you can then innovate, break the mold effectively. Look at Martin Luther, right? Challenging the church didn't come out of nowhere. Years of theological study, he knew the system inside and out before he dared to even think about dismantling it.
So it's more like learn the rules so well that you can then bend them, break them, make them your own. What about those intense focus strategies, though, like Nabokov writing Lolita in his parked car? Were all these geniuses just like naturally antisocial, or is there something more to it?
I don't think it was about being antisocial, but controlling their creative space. You know, we all have different tolerances for distractions. The takeaway here is to figure out what makes you do your best work. Maybe it's a quiet corner in a busy coffee shop, or maybe it's blasting Mozart while you code. Just find what works and own it.
That actually makes me feel better. It's not about fitting some stereotype of like lonely genius. More about figuring out your own creative space. Now, this next part's a little delicate maybe, but we got to talk about it. The source brings up this mad genius idea. Like there might be a connection between, well, mental distress and creative output, especially with poets.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, right? We definitely don't want to romanticize mental illness, but what we're really looking at here is how geniuses often channel their struggles, their pain even, into their work. It becomes this powerful form of expression.
It makes me think of Yayoi Kusama, who the source mentions. Her psychosomatic art, it came directly from her hallucinations. Kind of tragic and inspiring at the same time, you know? How she channeled that into such unique, impactful art.
It really highlights how something debilitating for one person can be a source of incredible creativity for another. There's no single story when it comes to human experience, is there? This whole mad genius thing, it's a reminder to approach everyone's journey with a lot of sensitivity.
For sure. It reminds us that what we think are weaknesses can become strengths. And that creative expression, it takes so many forms. So we've talked about keeping that childlike wonder, intense focus, breaking the rules, even facing those inner struggles. But here's a curveball the source emphasizes. Relaxing.
It does seem kind of counterintuitive in our world of, hustle and productivity, doesn't it? But even geniuses knew how important downtime was. Think about it. We've all had those aha moments out of the blue, like the source mentions Dickens pacing for miles while writing A Christmas Carol. Those weren't just random steps, right? It was letting his mind wander, make those unexpected connections. Even those ancient Greek philosophers, they were onto something with their walking debates.
It's like you have to step back from the painting to actually see the whole picture. And it's not just anecdotal. The source even talks about how sleep REM sleep specifically sparks creativity. Dali, Paul McCartney, they both said some of their best ideas came from dreams.
It shows how important it is to give our minds space to wander, make those surprising connections that we wouldn't get by forcing it. Especially today, when we're bombarded with information constantly, downtime is more important than ever.
So maybe taking breaks, it's not just about resting our bodies, but giving our minds the space for, like, genius to happen. Love that. We've covered so much. Childlike wonder, that laser focus, breaking the rules, dealing with our inner stuff, even the power of downtime. Anything else these geniuses can teach us? Or have we cracked the code?
We've definitely found some key ingredients, but there's one more thing the source points out that ties it all together: perspective. And I don't just mean seeing things like a child, but understanding that there are many ways to approach any situation, any problem, even a piece of art.
Makes sense. If everyone thought the same way, we wouldn't have groundbreaking discoveries or art that makes you question everything, right? The source mentions Warhol again here. He redefined art by focusing on everyday things, like soup cans.
Exactly. He took something ordinary and, by looking at it through his own lens, turned it into something that made people think. It's about shifting perspectives, challenging your own assumptions, finding the beauty, the meaning in things others might overlook.
Like that saying, one man's trash is another man's treasure. Warhol was great at finding the treasure. But how do we develop that flexible way of thinking? Is it something you're born with, or can you actually learn it?
And that's what's so exciting about this. It speaks directly to what we're all capable of. Some people might naturally see multiple perspectives, but it's a skill anyone can build. The source suggests things like actively seeking out different viewpoints, challenging your own biases, and getting comfortable with being wrong sometimes.
Like a mental workout for your brain. Instead of taking the same paths, you got to stretch those perspective muscles, get used to seeing things from all angles. I can feel myself getting more flexible already. Any practical ways to do this in our everyday lives?
Absolutely. The source talks about the importance of surrounding yourself with different perspectives. Through books, conversations, even travel. Actively seek out ideas and opinions that challenge your own. Let's say you love a certain genre of music. A great exercise would be to listen to something completely different with an open mind. You might discover a new appreciation for something you dismissed before, or you might even find elements that influence your own taste in surprising ways.
Like adding new spices to your cooking.
Right.
You might have your go-tos, but why limit yourself? A dash of something unexpected can totally transform a dish, or in this case, your whole perspective.
Exactly. It's all about embracing the unknown, letting it challenge you and expand your understanding. Who knows? That next conversation that inspires you, that book that makes you think differently, it could be the spark that ignites your own inner genius.
This is turning into a deep dive on unlocking our own potential. I love it. But speaking of potential, we haven't talked about failure much. Geniuses, as brilliant as they are, they're human. They must have had setbacks, made mistakes, maybe even some epic creative flops. Did the source talk about how these brilliant minds dealt with failure?
You know, you bring up a really important point, one that often gets missed. We love to focus on the successes, right? But those successes, they're usually built on a whole lot of setbacks and failures. Think about it. We're talking about people who pushed boundaries, who went into uncharted territory. Of course, they hit some roadblocks along the way.
So what made them different? Were they just like super resilient, or did they approach failure differently?
Well, the source doesn't really dig into the whole psychology of genius and failure specifically, but it kind of hints at one big difference. They could reframe setbacks, see them as chances to learn and grow. Remember that childlike curiosity we talked about? Being open to new experiences? That probably played a role in how they viewed failure too.
Instead of a mistake being a dead end, it's like a detour. A chance to find a new path they might not have discovered otherwise. Makes me think of Edison. I haven't failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work.
There you go. It's about shifting that voice in your head from, I messed up, to, okay, what did I learn? How can I use this going forward? And you know what? A lot of times, those so-called failures, they actually sparked even bigger breakthroughs.
That is seriously inspiring. We don't have to be perfect to tap into our own brilliance. It's more about, like, embracing the whole messy journey, twists and turns and all, and never losing that curiosity, that drive to explore. This has been amazing, but I feel like there's even more to discover about genius. What other insights are hiding in here?
We've definitely uncovered a goldmine of insights, haven't we? But there's this one last thing the source brings up that I find really fascinating.
Hmm.
It's not just about getting over obstacles, but realizing those obstacles, those challenges, those moments where things get tough, they can actually be the spark for the most incredible breakthroughs.
Wait, so it's not just about bouncing back, but actually using that energy, that frustration even, as creative fuel.
Yes, exactly. Think about it. If everything was easy for these geniuses, if they never hit a wall, would their work have the same depth, the same raw emotion? A lot of times, it's in the struggle, in wrestling with ideas, in pushing against limits, that the most profound innovations come out.
It's like they say, smooth seas never made a skilled sailor. It's those challenges, the storms we go through, that force us to rise to the occasion, and we discover those hidden depths of creativity we didn't even know we had.
And sometimes, it's about leaning into those challenges, even seeking them out. Like the source talks about how geniuses like Nabokov and Tolstoy, they created these very specific environments to do their best work, even if those environments seemed kind of weird to other people.
Like shutting themselves away in silence, or in Nabokov's case, his car. They knew what they needed to get those creative juices flowing. Okay, so we've got childlike curiosity, deep focus, breaking the rules, that whole mad scientist thing, the power of downtime, shifting perspectives, and seeing obstacles as opportunities. Is that it? Is that the secret formula for genius?
I love it. And that's the amazing thing about all this. It shows us that being a genius isn't about being a chosen one. It's about habits, ways of seeing, approaches that anyone can develop. You don't have to be Da Vinci or Einstein to embrace your curiosity, to seek out new perspectives, or to find creative ways to tackle challenges, right?
So the takeaway is we all have those little sparks of genius inside us just waiting to be ignited.
Exactly. It all comes down to how we choose to see the world and our place in it. Embrace the unknown with that sense of wonder, challenge your assumptions, and never lose that drive to learn and grow.
I don't know about you, but after today, I kind of want to go for a walk, stare at some clouds, maybe have a staring contest with a soup can.
Sounds like a plan. You never know what brilliant ideas are waiting around the corner.
This has been an amazing journey, not just into the minds of geniuses, but into our own potential. We've learned it's not just about raw talent, but about building habits, facing challenges head-on, and never losing that childlike sense of wonder. Remember, a little downtime never hurt, and who knows? Your next big idea might be waiting in a dream, on a walk, or even while you're stuck in traffic. Until next time, keep those minds curious and don't be afraid to explore.